Tony Williams from Boston, Massachusetts, one of the most important jazz musicians of all time, perhaps the most influential jazz drummer of all time, outside of Elvin Jones and Roy Haynes and Max Roach. But the one difference with Tony and those guys is Tony influenced not only jazz drummers but rock drummers. Without Tony Williams, you would not have Vinnie Colaiuta, Dennis Chambers, Eric Harlan, Justin Brown, any of the so-called gospel chops drummers. None of them would exist. Tony Williams took the idea of the traditional jazz ride beat, ding, ding, da-ding, ding, da-ding, the 16th note phrase, accenting those two last 16th notes of the bar. He broadened that. So instead of having ding, ding, da-ding, ding, da-ding, or ding, ding, da-ding, ding, da-ding, ding, da-ding, like the great Philly Joe Jones would play, Tony, from the get-go, broadened the ride cymbal beat to be more of an eighth note feel. Ding, ding, da-ding, dang, da-ding, dang, da-ding. I can't sing. And from that explosion, changed the face and the feel of jazz. When you first hear Tony with Miles Davis, perhaps on Four or More, that's where I first heard him. He's playing these incredibly fast, advanced, complex, over-the-bar, polyrhythmic figures swinging the whole time, one explosion after another. He fired the 60s group with Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, and Ron Carter. That band would not have existed without Tony. And then later, in 1975, with the first Tony Williams Believe It, which this is a live recording that has come out very recently of that band, with Tony Newton, Alan Pasquale, and Alan Holdsworth, he innovates again, changing his drumming from a very loose, polyrhythmic, complex explosions, jazz-oriented, to more of a rock sound. He takes the eighth note idea even further, plays giant rock rhythms. Instead of playing complex figures around the drums, he's playing single notes, single note rolls with great power. Things are straighter, it's more about power. He goes from being, I guess, an Alfa Romeo that can handle any turn to being a Cadillac that hogs the road and just drives power right through it. I only saw Tony once, around 1984, when he played at Birdland here in New York. I interviewed him for Musician Magazine. I was kind of scared of him. He was kind of a harsh dude. And he played so loud, we just laughed our butts off. We couldn't believe it. When I saw Elvin Jones at the Blue Note, around the same time, he was also incredibly loud, but so musical. But you have Tony on those great albums with Miles Davis, ESP, Miles Smiles, Nefertiti, Philly di Kilimanjaro, Miles in the Sky, where he's just so amazing. On Fiedler and Braun, on Philly di Kilimanjaro, I can't pronounce the damn record. It's got the face on the front. He's playing Cold Sweat to a jazz rhythm. It's pretty amazing on that one track. In Fall from Nefertiti, the musicians are playing the melody over and over which Tony constantly is exploding and expanding and soloing throughout the whole tune. It's just a remarkable performance. And those records, that 60s quintet, is still amazing to listen to. It's lost none of its power. It still sounds as far out as it did back then. In 1969, Tony Williams recorded the first jazz rock record. This is a live record of that same band, Tony Williams' Lifetime Emergency, on Columbia was the name of that record. Actually, Columbia wouldn't sign him, so it went with Polydor. On that record, which is incredibly noisy, he brings John McLaughlin, the guitarist from England, and Larry Young on organ, who made all the great records on Blue Note. And they're still playing a version of Swing, but it's powerful and over the top and distorted, but Tony's still definitely swinging. But then in 1975, he did Tony Williams' new Lifetime Believe It. This is the new or recently reissued or issued recording of that band at the Village Gate. That record is a rock record. Amazing guitar solos, amazing drumming. He reinvented himself. Didn't sound anything like the old Tony. Everything was broader, bigger, more powerful, incredibly powerful. And the backstories behind all these, between these two records, behind the beginning of jazz rock, the reason why Tony Williams was never received the due he should have received. And I did a long story for Downbeat many years ago where I interviewed Pat Metheny and Wallace Roney, the trumpet player with Miles' wonderful 80s quintet, Wayne Shorter, all these guys. And essentially, when Tony Williams played probably one of these recordings, at the somewhere in New York. I don't know where. Al Kooper was backstage. Well, first up he played, and Miles Davis was in the audience, and he came to the front of the stage and said to Tony, I want your band, you come play with me. We'll call it Miles Davis Presents the New Tony Williams Lifetime. Well, Tony said, screw that, I don't want to do that, I'll do that on my own. Miles went around his back and hired McLaughlin and Larry Young anyway, and I believe they play it on in a silent way. One of those same dates, Al Kooper, who famously played the organ on Bob Dylan's Like a Rolling Stone and did all the great records of his own, I think in the Blues Project, and other groups, was an A&R scout for Columbia, and he wanted to sign Lifetime to Columbia. This is before the Mahavishnu Orchestra, before Return to Forever, obviously before the I think the Weaklings in the House, the 11th House with Larry Coryell. I never thought that band matched Mahavishnu or Return to Forever, or Weatherport, obviously the king of all those bands. But anyway, Al Kooper wanted to hire Lifetime and put their records on in Columbia, but he went to John McLaughlin. And that pissed off Tony again. He threw Al Kooper out of the band, rather out of the club. But Kooper signed John McLaughlin anyway, and the Mahavishnu Orchestra was born in 1971. Whereas Tony, out on the street. A few years later, he puts together the great band, the new Tony Williams Lifetime Believe It. This is a live recording on the Hi-Hat label, which has done many of these unusual live projects, mostly taken from live gigs or radio concerts from the boards, and the sound is sometimes good, sometimes not very good. The sound on both of these is not that great, but the sound of this record, not the sound but the performance, is phenomenal. To hear these musicians playing those tunes, if you know that record, some of the songs on that record are standards now. Mr. Spock, Protocosmos, I can't remember the other tunes, but those are standards now in some weird way. You don't hear them on jazz gigs, but everybody knows those tunes. With the amazing Alan Holdsworth, Tony Newton, Alan Pasqua, and on this record they play all those tunes, the same arrangements, but almost double the speed. It's blistering, it's hard to believe, but it works. This record is a similar case, but it doesn't work. They're sort of falling apart, and it's not quite there yet. I think his vision is not quite there yet, but this is a great document of a great period in Tony Williams' career. Then after this, he played in VSOP with Herbie Hancock and Wayne Shorter and Freddie Hubbard. And then he formed his own group on Blue Note, I believe it was in the 80s, or was it the 90s? Can't remember. Doing many, many great records, very much a traditional style with his incredibly powerful drumming. I interviewed him once in 1984 when he played at Birdland. He was kind of a scary guy, very intense, if you're trying to interview him. But when he started to play, he was so loud, it was unbelievable, so much power. He did his quintet for quite a long time. They were very successful. It's a great band, Billy Pierce, Mulgrew Miller, I forget who was on bass, but that was a great, great band. Playing all his tunes in his new big style, which was still swinging very hard, but it was a bigger sound. He also went from a small kit to those big yellow Gretsch drums. That's not why I'm wearing this shirt. But that was a very different drum sound, but commanding and powerful, just more true to his personality. Near the end of his life, one of the last records he did, the last record, was called Wilderness, with an all-star cast of Herbie Hancock and Pat Metheny. A few years later, 1997, he died after recovering from a gallbladder operation. It was a botched operation, or they botched the post-care. They let him go home and they shouldn't have. Tony's wife took the hospital to court. They blew her off. She got with Wayne Shorter and Herbie Hancock, who funded her ability to get a better attorney, and they cleaned the clock of that hospital to the benefit of Tony Williams' widow. So just a little bit of a story about the great Tony Williams, who never quite received his due, even though he's one of the most influential and greatest jazz musicians of all time. Thank you.